Thanks for coming. And Caitlin, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk. I am going to stay back here because my most active audience is right here. You are too, but here are the people that who need to see what's going on here, and all of them. So first let me just tell you that I come from Washington University, and so does Caitlin, and there are a few more folks from WashU. We are here, and as you probably know, that Washington University has lots of different connections with the community, and this is another way for us to come to you and talk to you about what is it that we are doing in the areas of energy, the environment, and sustainability. Okay, so at WashU we have this center that I direct, and this center is where all the activities that take place in the area of energy, environment, and sustainability all are working under the umbrella of this center. Okay, so many of the things that I will talk about today are all under the umbrella of this one center, and I work with, so this gives me an excellent opportunity to work with lots of different very talented scientists who are not only just at Washington University, but as you will see, many others who are coming from different countries, different states, and they all come to WashU because of the activities that take place in the context of PARC, and I will talk about PARC a little later. Okay, so let me see. So I chose this topic without knowing the kind of audience that I'm going to have today. And I think that it probably is one that's relevant to all of us. So what I'm going to talk about are these three F's: the food, the feed, and the fuels. And I call it an eternal nexus because of the following reason. The production of food and feed, this is very important to all of us, right? And this need many resources. And these resources are of the kind like you need a lot of land, you need a lot of water, you need a lot of chemicals, you need a lot of money. But what I'm going to talk about today is that it needs a lot of energy. Okay? So for tonight, for all of us, forget about your greenbacks, all the US dollars that you have in your pocket or the ones that you aspire to get, but think only in terms of energy, because I'm going to make a statement. Without energy, we are all dead, right? We need to have energy around us, but getting this energy is also can be, it's kind of a two-edged sword, because not all energy that we are getting is keeping the planet healthy and happy, okay? I'm not going to go into any of those details. I'm going to talk about some of the good things that natural systems provide us that utilizes energy and then produces stuff that we all use. And in this case, the ones that are immediately transparent to all of us are the food and the feed, but also the fuels. Okay, and we will come back to this. Okay. So how much energy do we use? And here comes numbers. I am a numbers person, but I'm going to keep that number, all those things about numbers really at a level where all of us can appreciate. So how much energy do we use? And I borrowed this slide from a very well-known researcher from California named Nate Lewis, who came and talked to us some years ago. And here's a nice picture. And so let me introduce to you this term that's called watt, right? We all know about this. Light bulbs that are on, they are 100 watts or 50 watts, we see that. But let's think about how much energy that is. So here is a nice example. Here is a computer, and that requires about 1 watt, somewhere between 1 and 10 watts, not too much energy. Okay, then here is one that in our kitchen is using up a lot of energy, right? In the kitchen, this is one of the things that uses a lot of energy. And how much energy is that? That's a kilowatt. Okay? So going from one step to the next one, it's 10 to the 3 or 1,000-fold more. So this thing takes, your computer uses only 1 watt. The toaster oven or the toaster itself is using 1,000-fold more energy. Okay, as we go up here, here is an aircraft, okay, and that's a small one, and that's using somewhere here 1 megawatt or million watts. So again, 1,000-fold more. Okay, so think about it in this way: the energy that this one uses, 1 million computers can run in with that energy. That's one way of thinking about it. Okay, let's go up even more. Here is a power plant. This happens to be a nuclear power plant, but if it is a coal-fired power plant, or if it is a power plant that people use in our society, they will be somewhere here, 1 gigawatt. Okay. Now, giga is a number that we often do not hear, but 10 to the 9, that will be 1,000 million. That's a billion. And billion is a number that we know because on this planet we now have a little more than 7 billion people, right? And so here is again 1,000-fold more. And then comes this number, which is just a very large number, and that's 10 to the 12. That's a terawatt. So terawatt is what our planet uses. Okay? So now you can see that there is a lot of energy that's used every day by our planet, meaning us, and without the energy, as I told you earlier on, we are all dead. Okay. So now what's the big deal? Yes.
All day?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yes. Okay. So now let's see where is this energy coming from in today's world. And let me point out what I'm showing here. Here is 1990, okay, 25 years ago. Here is where we are right now. So up until here, it's kind of known numbers. Over here, it's projection, what will happen in the future. And we are now looking at the whole world. It's not St. Louis, it's not just the United States, it's the whole world, okay? And we have to have that view that we are looking at all the people all over the planet. Okay. So the number right here is 12 terawatts. And the number is going to go up, projection at that time when the projection was made in 2008, that it will go up to 28 terawatts. Let's say 30 terawatts. Let's keep those numbers in mind. And let's go back and see what that really means. Okay? So as I said, here is a power plant. That's a nuclear power plant. That's a 1 gigawatt. So you need 1,000 of these to get 1 terawatt, right? All right, so now we are going to require 30 terawatts. So we need 30,000 nuclear power plants between now and 2050 to meet this challenge. Okay, so just keep this in mind because this just shows that the energy challenge is a huge and humongous challenge. And many of the things that we do at Washington University when we think about energy, environment, and sustainability is to think about how we can produce energy in a clean and efficient manner, but still meet the need of the planet. Okay, so now, where will we get so much energy? So let me stop and ask the question. Is there anybody who will like to answer that question? Where will this energy come from?
Sun.
The sun. Okay. So that's where the energy is coming from. And we know this, but we do not appreciate it. So here, let me give you some more numbers. But those of you who do not want to look at all these numbers, don't worry about it. I'll come back and give you the simple story. Okay. So from the sun, already we know that every day during the daytime, there is a lot of energy that's coming to the planet, onto the surface of the earth. Okay? How much energy is that? Again, TW is terawatt. Remember those numbers? And we were just talking about 38, 40, that kind of number, and that's a huge, humongous number. Look at this. Forget about all of these upper ones. Those are even larger. But this is the number, right? 600. So there is a lot of energy that's coming from the sun. The problem is that we do not know at this stage how to harvest all of that solar energy and use it very efficiently. And that's one of the goals that we have at PARC, is trying to understand the scientific basis of how we can someday be able to gather all of that energy that comes to us free every day. We just don't capture it, okay? So again, you will notice, and I will come back to this, a lot of people, when they talk about all of these scenarios, they paint a gloomy picture. I'm just the opposite. I always think that things are very bright, and things are very bright in the future simply because we have the sun. And it's not just just something that I'm saying. You will see as we go through that the solar energy can do so much for us in the future. And for the longest time, if we know how to harvest the solar energy, we can be energy sufficient, and by we I mean the entire planet. So it's not a situation of despair. It's a situation where we know that we have the energy coming. We just need to learn how to get that. Okay, so here is something that I now will point out. Now I'm going to get into photosynthesis. And photosynthesis already we know is capturing 90 terawatts. And where is this happening? It's all the trees, all the plants. This is why we say don't cut down those forests. Don't take out everything that's all over the planet, because photosynthesis is happening there, and without those plants, this will not happen, right? So that's another reason we need to have those. So what is photosynthesis? This is my only chemistry equation. Those of you who do not pay attention to these, that's fine. I'll tell you this is carbon dioxide, that's water. And this is the basic photosynthesis that many of us have been studying for a long time. And basically what it's showing is that nature already figured out a process, that's photosynthesis, that happens globally, in which carbon dioxide is taken up, sunlight is used as the source of energy, and then water, which is all around us, is used, and you make what this strange thing looks like. For those of you who do not follow this, it's just sugar, okay? So that just means that starting from CO2 or carbon dioxide and water, we can make sugar and other things. And this is the beginning of life, essentially, because we are all dependent on this simple reaction. Plants do it, and very similarly, as we will talk about, microbes also do it, and the microbes that I will talk about today are called cyanobacteria. Okay, so what has photosynthesis done for us so far? Brought oxygen to the biosphere. That's a good thing, because we depend on that. Changed the planet's atmosphere, because oxygen was not here, and a lot of oxygen came after photosynthesis started. Photosynthesis has produced almost all food and feed that sustain our lives. This is very obvious because agriculture depends on photosynthesis. And then what we often do not think about, it has helped generate energy-rich fossil fuels such as petroleum and coal, but over millennia, over a very long time, that have so far been critical in accelerating the pace of development of modern human societies. But we know that the reserve of petroleum and reserve of coal is not infinite, and we can debate that we will run out of those resources in 10 years, 50 years, or maybe 200 years, but we will run out of them, okay? So we need to have another way of harvesting this abundant source of energy, the sunlight, energy in sunlight. And I would like to argue that photosynthesis still continues to be a very good way to harvest sunlight and the energy in it. What is the role of photosynthesis today in food and feed production? And this is an interesting thing to think about. It's a multi-step process. What's happening, if you think about it now, is that plants produce sugar, as I just showed you. That's photosynthesis. And other energy-rich molecules, and we'll not go into the details of what those are. But these plant products are then used in subsequent biological or chemical processes to produce what we call food and feed. Okay? So photosynthesis at the beginning but we do not take it all the way for the production of food and feed. And an example will be this one. And for tonight, I don't know how the cards are doing right now. I don't even want to think about it now. But let's say beer production, okay? Plants make sugar, and we feed that sugar to yeast to make alcohol. That's what's happening at all the breweries, right? And we have been doing this for a very long time. So it's a two-step process. Now, engineering principles say that whenever you have multi-step processes become more and more inefficient. So that's the principle that we want to use now. Can we make this a one-step process that's much more efficient? Or in other words, can we have a photosynthetic organism directly making what we want? And that's basically what I'm going to tell you, is that it's only during the last 10 years it has become clear that yes, we can do this. Okay, so again, why efficiency is important? It's a key to future success. And that's probably because of all of these reasons. We'll have less agricultural land, we'll have less available water, we'll have other resources, less and less of this per capita, because right now we are at 7 billion, and it's projected that we are going to reach almost 10 billion, right, before it tapers off. So a lot of folks will be born during the next 40, 50 years. Now, conventional agriculture will fail to meet the planet's need by 2050. That's something that people are saying. And this is where the doom and gloom comes. Oh, what are we going to do? We are going to run out of all the land. So I say we need a step change in agriculture. The way we have done agriculture is probably not the way we'll be doing that in the future. So one of the ways, I'm going to discuss that with you now. Okay, so there are some pictures here. This one is about green dreams. This just shows that you can actually, instead of corn, you can grow miscanthus, a plant that has a lot of biomass. That means you have more material that you can use. Okay. Here is another one, which is what I just talked about. CO2 coming out of a power plant, carbon dioxide. That can be used by algae with sunlight. Then that algae can then start producing stuff, and we can use them. Okay? Now, what kind of algae would you like to use? This is an area where my lab does a lot of research, and we use what are called cyanobacteria. These are small algae, used to be called blue-green algae, but they're more like bacteria. And they look like this. This is a picture from an article that was published within the last few years. But this kind of shows that here is a bacterial cell, a cyanobacterial cell. Here is sunlight, and carbon dioxide is coming in and oxygen is going out. That's the simple process of photosynthesis. So we are going to exploit this system to try to make stuff. Okay, so cyanobacteria are, again, they produce oxygen. They've been around for a long time, and they are found everywhere. Okay? They look like this. At the single cell level, they can look like this, or kind of longish like that, or they can be in filament, right? They come in different forms and shapes, and they are everywhere. You can find cyanobacteria out there in your backyard. You can find them on ponds. They are everywhere. Now, let me now very briefly talk about a new kind of science that has started, which is a conspiracy between engineers, physicists, and biologists, a good conspiracy. And that one is called engineering biology, or some people call it synthetic biology. Okay? And so what happens here? One of the things that probably all of us know is that over the last 20 years, we have been able to decode or read DNA. That's how the human genome was sequenced. So has been sequenced lots of plant genome, cyanobacterial genomes. So that's the reading the DNA. Another thing that has happened that chemists have done over the last few years is that we can also write DNA. And writing DNA basically means you can synthesize DNA. So you can just type in, here is the kind of DNA sequence that I want, and then somebody will just synthesize that for you. So these are tremendously powerful new technologies that has become available. And then, as I said, physicists, chemists, and engineers, they have teamed up with biology. And this is basically what synthetic biology or engineering biology area. Enormous potential to develop bio-based economies, will provide solutions necessary to emerging needs in a world challenged with food and energy impoverishment over this century. These are all predictions that are being made. And it needs new tools and applications that are being developed to meet such global challenges. So what we are going to do is put that synthetic biology or engineering biology, that approach, into cyanobacteria. Now, why engineer cyanobacteria? This is a picture from a company called Joule that's using cyanobacteria, and they are growing them like in these flat panels, like your TV panel. And each one of the cyanobacterial cells look like this. The reason they are doing it is they want to make fuels that are going to get into a VW. Or what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be fuel. We can also make food and feed from this process. And that's depicted here. From cyanobacteria, and we call them cell factories, by using synthetic biology approaches, and I will not go into details right now. If anybody has questions, I'll be happy to discuss with you. But just accept the fact that these are becoming more and more easy. A lot of research labs as well as application-oriented scientists are doing this. And basically what it shows is that here is a cyanobacterial cells, carbon dioxide coming in, water coming in, you put in some nutrients, and of course you need sunlight. Using all those inputs, you can make a whole bunch of things. And look, the things that I show here, amino acids, nucleic acids, vitamins, lipids, these are all part of what we know as our life, as well as what we need from our food. So cyanobacteria can make all these things. Now, those of us who are doing our research work in my laboratory and other labs at Washington University and elsewhere, we study the processes. We are just interested in the basic processes. Why does it happen? What's going on? And one of those things, I always say 13th is a good number, because remember, today is the 13th. We are here. It's a good day. And it's a good day for us also in the lab, because one of the researchers in my group, actually two of the researchers in my group, they just published this paper today. Okay? And it's about these alkanes, right? So these alkanes are nothing but an easy substitute for petroleum. So the idea is that by making more of these alkanes, we are going to have cyanobacteria-mediated production of alkanes, so that we don't have to depend on petroleum as a resource. Okay? But I just show you this is because we are having a lot of fun doing the research work. But the practical application is going to be captured in this slide. And I call it a scenario in that bright future that I started talking about. So what's going to happen? The first thing to keep in mind is what we are not going to have. The available land on that day in the bright future, 50, 60, or 500 years, whenever it is in the future, land now must provide not only food, but also the biofuels, because we are going to depend on these photosynthetic organisms for making fuels, and other petrochemicals. As I just showed you, that chemical components are also can come out from this synthetic biology approach. So these were once cheaply available from underground, namely from petroleum and coal. We are going to run out of them someday, and then this will be a way for us to make more of it. So one solution is engineered cyanobacteria, which can grow on marginal lands, use brackish or ocean water, unsuitable for most conventional crops, because as I said, we're going to run out of land, possibly reclaiming land that's recently lost to various processes, not just desertification. Okay? Then they can also do photosynthesis at efficiencies that are far higher than green plants. This is something that we know from our research work. So these little bugs, they can do photosynthesis at much higher efficiencies than corn or switchgrass or other favorite crops. And then finally, and this is the fun part, keep this in mind, and some of you after this, whatever you just had as your snack, may not actually like this, but believe me, this is possible. Creative food technology might make cyanobacteria-derived cuisine taste the same as chicken or beef. or even better, with consequent 15-fold reductions of energy use relative to animals. Okay, whenever we take the corn, run it through a cow, and then we consume the cow, we have a 10-fold reduction in efficiency, and we cannot afford to be less efficient. Now, I didn't write this. This was written by somebody who is in the genomics area at Harvard. Name is George Church, and he wrote this book called Regenesis. And within quote, from there to there, is exactly what he wrote. He doesn't work with cyanobacteria, but he understands that this is a one-way out for us in the future. So again, going back, a scenario in the bright future, imagine there will be lots and lots of cyanobacteria growing everywhere. Imagine that they will be making all the things that we expect from plants and chemistry, and there is no limit to all the things that these microbial cell factories can make. Let me go back to the Photosynthetic Antenna Research Center. That's the center that, this is the outreach activity for that. You understood photosynthesis is what I just talked about. And a lot of us together, under the leadership of Robert Blankenship, who is the director, and Dewey Holton, who is the associate director, we work at PARC. We are funded by US Department of Energy. And they have trusted us with your money, as has been pointed out by Caitlin, to the tune of more than $35 million so far, in bringing together scientists, because this kind of science cannot be done alone, to do research work. And these scientists are coming to us from all over the world, essentially. Here I show all the ones from United States, and here are some researchers who also come from UK. We all work together, 14 institutions, 11 universities, and 3 national labs. For us, it's a lot of fun. For you, hopefully you will be able to produce results that are going to be applicable directly for the production of food, feed, and fuels. The tangible things that are happening right now, here are the long-term objectives for PARC: to understand the basic scientific principles that underpin the efficient functioning of the natural photosynthetic system as a basis for man-made systems to convert sunlight into fuels, and I will add to that food and feed. And this is a very important thing, which is where all of you come in. Building a legacy of intellectual and technical capacity for harvesting the solar energy for the future. So students like Caitlin, others, they are all working toward this goal, and I'm very hopeful that my audience right there, they have gotten at least a little bit of excitement from this work, because they are the ones who are going to carry on this work in the future. I thank you, and I thank the sun. I will be available for questions.
Because now he's up here, and this is when you get to bombard him with all your questions. Really, really drill him, make sure that he told you everything that he should have. So just feel free to,
yes.
The early slide where you had it where you're projecting the energy needs to the future, a couple of lines ahead, either WRE or MRE as a unit of measure, I assume. What did that stand for? Acronym. Go ahead and begin, unfortunately.
It's okay. You're talking about this?
Yeah.
Okay. So what these are different programs that are being used. So basically what it's saying is that because it's in the future, so we are projecting. So in some kind of scenario, it's going to be like this. In another kind of scenario, it's going to be like that. Okay. I can go into more detail if you want, but we can probably have it. Okay. All right. So up until here is what we knew. This is where we are projecting, right? And something that, since we are here, let me just point out, the top part, this big part, which is a lot of energy, in the future out there, this is all going to come from the top there, which is renewable, okay? Yeah. Right now, renewable does not provide a lot of the entire gamut, but in the future, there will be more. Did I see another hand? Yeah.
There's no research for genetic
So the synthetic biology that we talked about, or it is basically what has been called genetic engineering in the past.
So you are not modifying what exists in nature, correct?
So that's an interesting thing. So this is probably the question that you may have is with respect to GMO. Am I saying it right? Okay. So let me dispel some of the notions that people talk about when we talk about. One thing that is very, very important for scientists like us, when we work inside the lab, we do our experiments, and we do our experiments in very safe conditions. We do it in such a way that things cannot escape easily. We not only wear goggles, we wear lab coats, we do experiments under very strict conditions. Whenever things go outside, the biologists, as opposed to the physicists, long time ago decided that there is a self-moratorium. So in 1977, where genetic engineering first started, the biologists got together and they said, we are not going to release any of these things outside. And so whenever we talk about any of these technologies, when it goes beyond our hands and goes into the marketplace, in between, there are thousands of scrutinies, and many things do not ever reach the marketplace because of the safety issues. Okay. Yes?
So if you use this for fuel, is there any kind of byproduct from it, any kind of pollution, any kind of side, what's we didn't think about that?
Right. So the two things that comes from this question. The question, I will repeat that, is when we use it to produce fuel, are there byproducts? And you talked about byproducts as more like bad byproducts, right? Or good. So good is the first one that I will take up. When we think about petroleum, what do we think about petroleum? What comes out of petroleum?
Carbon.
Okay. But petroleum is connected first and foremost with gasoline, right? Is there anything else that comes from petroleum? Lots of things.
It's one of the basic chemical.
That's right. So 50% of petroleum is fuel, the other 50% is chemical. Not that exact number. Okay, so when we talk about the biological production of fuels, it's not just fuels, but lots of different chemicals, and some of those I showed there. The other part is it how safe it is, or is it producing other products, byproducts, that are not good for us? Well, all I will say is that Mother Nature was extremely clever. That one simple reaction that I showed, that's the greenest of the green reaction that you can think about, because it eats carbon dioxide, it makes oxygen, and it uses water, and there is almost nothing left from that. This is a natural process. So we are emulating that process, and at every step of the way, we try to lower the burden on the planet. So sustainability is a big part of it. Okay? Yep.
I have a question. What's the reaction from like the oil industry to this? Because I can see that they
So what's the reaction from the oil industry? It's mixed, So first let's think about the nations that produce petroleum. The largest solar cell facility in the world right now is in Germany. The second largest one is in Saudi Arabia. So they are keeping their eyes open because they are very astute, and we had a specialist from the Saudis who came and talked to us within the university in what their projection is. They also realize that they're going to run out of petroleum. So they are doing their research. But the companies that are directly involved in the production of fuels, it's like everything else. They will always say this is a slow process, this cannot produce all that is needed, and they also, by definition, they will say there is plenty of fossil fuel forever. So that will go on. I don't think that that will stop. The one thing that is now a little difficult is from the point of view of the cost structure. Because of the fact that the barrel of oil, the price has dropped, all of a sudden we have this propensity, oh, let me drive my Hummer again because it costs much less, right? And so all of a sudden we are forgetting our smaller cars, and by the same token we are forgetting that a day will come when we are going to run out of that fossil fuel, and if we don't continue doing all that we are doing to get renewables, we are going to be in a very sad shape in the future. But there is a nice balance, and this is a worldwide thing, and things are moving forward. But that's a good point. Yes?
Another question just came in, and your answer actually kind of led into this. Do you have any projection to when some of these processes will be available at the scale where the efficiency sells the public, us, on it's practical?
So the question is about when are these things going to be available out in the marketplace? And the answer is kind of connected to what I mentioned earlier on. The technology for many of these are either there or almost there right now because of all that has happened over the last 20 years. But it needs a lot more scrutiny, and especially when we are talking about organisms that have been modified. And it will come in steps. Fuel production will probably take the longest time because that's a very large volume and low per unit cost. The chemicals is where probably the first dent is going to be made. It's already being made. But those need to take time because there are going to be all kinds of scrutiny, what we call field trials, that need to take place. Yeah?
So there was something in there that said that it could also diminish deserts, right? And so does that mean that the deserts could be deforested by this? Or does that affect global warming in any kind of way?
Good question. So this has to do with, I mentioned desertification. Basically, that addressed the issue of no part of the planet is going to be inaccessible to this technology. And that's simply because, as I mentioned much earlier on, that these bugs over the last 3 billion years, they have figured out how to thrive everywhere. So that was the sense as far as why desertification. Now, as far as global climate change, that's another huge issue, and it's a controversial issue, one that we think about at iCares quite a bit. And yes, definitely. I mean, if that happens, then that will have a direct effect on climate change. But that's probably for another day. Yes?
Those cyanobacteria that you're producing, or can be producing, are they going to be patented? And if it's patented, then who's controlling those patents?
I see. So this now we are coming into the intellectual property rights, and anything that we do research-wise at our institution or any other academic institution in the United States, because of the Bayh-Dole Act, the intellectual property resides with the institution. Now the institutions then can grant the right of use of it to a profit-making organization. It can also open it up for public use. So largely we as researchers, we stay away from that part. There are other parts of the institution that are involved in that. Okay? But definitely, intellectual properties and its value has played a major role in the Western society as far as making progress. Somebody has to pay for the bills. But we as researchers, we truly believe in what Caitlin started with, is you are the taxpayers who have paid us to do the research. So we do our research and we publish it. The intellectual property stays with the institution, and then in some cases that goes for public use. In some cases that goes with something that's more profit-making. It depends. Yeah?
Fast forward to
the slide where the cyanobacteria, different things that can come like the bile, diesel, the food, I think it was there.
Right. Caitlin, are we still on time? Okay, so this one, right?
So are these expected to be one-step processes?
So these are going to be all expected to be one-step processes. That means carbon dioxide. So think about this thing, which is a cyanobacterial cell, to be a biofactory. So we call them cell factories, right? So these cell factories, what comes in is shown this way, and what comes out is shown here. And all of these, or most of these, are already proven that yes, it works. But it's that scaling issue that came up that needs to be determined now. How much can you produce in a short period of time? Oh, yes?
Can you control which process goes through?
Absolutely. So the question was, can you control which process? It's just like a chemistry process or an engineering process. We understand, see, this is one thing that has happened with the genomic revolution. Nowadays, when we start with the cyanobacterium, literally in one evening, as I say, we can sequence the genome. Genome sequencing is that fast. So reading the genome is trivial nowadays. Okay, so once we have the sequence, then we can do analysis on a computer and ask the question, what can this organism make based on what is the potential of this organism to make? So we have the circuit diagram. Once we have the circuit diagram, then we say, we want the current to flow from there to here, but not from there to there. So now we have those engineering techniques, which are, by the way, recombinant DNA work, where we can go inside this organism and turn off those pathways and channel things this way. These are the tremendous advances that have been made in the last 10, 15 years. And in my lab and many other labs, this is happening all the time. So yes, we can make single products starting from these inputs. Yes?
So theoretically, with this process, could you purely solve the problem of hunger in third world countries?
That's probably one of the most important questions. So the question was, will this solve the problem of hunger? And you touched on a very important issue. There are two things here. One is available amount of food. The other one is hunger. So just yesterday I was listening to the fact that by some criteria, because of that guy who won the Nobel Prize on poverty, an economist from Princeton, now people are saying, United Nations is saying that for the first time on our planet, less than 10% of the people are poor who go hungry, right? Hunger is to an extent where you have far fewer calories every day available to you than what you need for sustenance. And yes, this kind of technology is going to help that in a big way. And the reason for that is what in engineering field is called its distributive technology. Or in other words, you can have this and you can make in a small quantity what you need from that biofactory, right? You don't need that huge nuclear power plant or a huge organization and factory to make what you need. So we feel, and in fact in our laboratory now there is research work that's going on that is aimed at providing fixed nitrogen to plants, which we hope is going to help the poor people in places like Africa, in Asia, because they are in that range where very little is being produced. And then looking at me, you can probably tell that our major problem is too much. So we are hungry for less food and nutritious food. And I think these organisms can also supply some of the things that we need. I thought I saw a hand right here, and I was very interested in that. Were you going to ask a question? No. Okay.
Oh, wait, no, sorry, Kim. You had his hand first.
You had? Okay, ask the question. I'm sorry. And then I will come to you.
So you said we need to absorb the power of the sun. So are solar panels the best way to get the power of the sun?
Oh, that's an excellent suggestion. So this young person here has probably talked about something that I was not going to talk about. Yes, solar panels are great. But guess what? All the plants are solar panels themselves, because they are all capturing sunlight and making something. A solar panel on your roof is going to make electricity, whereas all these plants and these cyanobacteria, they are also solar panels, and that solar panel aspect is what we study in parc, captures the light and then makes all this good stuff that we eat, or the animals eat, and then we eat them. Okay? Yes?
I was just curious, do you experience or anticipate experiencing, for lack of a better word, resistance from like the major companies? Like the petroleum industry is a huge industry. Do you, or as a researcher, are you kind of removed from that, and people at other levels, just like the people at other levels that deal with the intellectual property rights, do you see this coming in conflict with huge industries like that, as far as the advancement of this technology? Because obviously the sunlight's free.
I think about it all the time, because believe it or not, even though the taxpayers are paying the money for us to do the research, when it comes to $34 million that comes to parc, we have to compete. So we always have to think about what you were just saying. So the answer is the following. Two ways to think about it. One is that let the petroleum, I don't want to pick them. Whoever is the competition, let them say what they're saying. But ultimately we have the right kind of technology that solves big issues. We are going to win.
The day you're going to win.
We are going to win. The other thing that will happen, it's even better, is this technology will create industries that are much bigger than any of those industries. After all, the largest company in the world right now is not ExxonMobil, it's not Shell, it's Apple. And who would have thought about that 20 years ago? So that's a clear example of where technology can take you to. So, we do our little bit sitting in our laboratories at Washington University, but I think that downstream effects can be quite profound.
Or if we're lucky, they'll take that paper you published, steal the research themselves, and commercialize it. Sounds good to me.
Yes?
Once you produce one of these organisms, are they self-replicating?
Yes, they are. So the question was, once you produce, are they self-replicating? Yes. But again, that's where comes all of these controls that we talked about. So when we generate these organisms, before releasing them outside, because you have to grow them in large areas, we have already switches put on there so that they cannot proliferate infinitely and take over the entire planet. But they can self-replicate, and that's the beauty of biology.
Anybody else have a question?
Yes.
Are there already jobs available in this field right now, or is it just still?
Are there jobs that are readily available in this field? Yes, there are, and I hope there will be more. Just to give you an idea, in academics, it used to be a time when people who graduated from my group, they would go and become professors like me. Now the situation is just the opposite. And St. Louis is a wonderful place now for entrepreneurship, to start small companies. And just this morning I was talking about the fact that over the last 5 or 6 years, the number of people who have left my group, there are 4 of them who are in the same building right behind the Danforth Plant Science Center called the Bridge Park, in 3 different companies that are small companies that are doing cutting-edge research but taking things to the marketplace. There are other people who are graduating who are going to multinationals and working there. So the situation is very different now than it used to be. We are not training just future teachers and professors or researchers. We're also training people who are taking all of these technologies to the marketplace. Yes, there are quite a few jobs. Yes.
Will you be able to generate magnetic qualities from this and create any type of electricity from this?
I'm sorry.
Will you be able to create any type of electricity from this?
Oh, can you create electricity from this directly? That's directly from the cells.
Directly or indirectly?
You know, there are some people who are trying that directly from the cells, creating electricity. But one of the ways that we can do the work is going on, and that's a very important area for research that done by some people in PARC, is that what's happening here in photosynthesis, there are machines, we call them molecular machines, whose job it is to actually produce electricity across a membrane. So the idea is, if we can take these naturally occurring machines, layer them down on a surface, and shine light on them, can we create an electric current? And there has been quite a bit of progress in that area, and there are researchers at PARC who are involved in that. Yes, that's possible.
So in our lab, for example, we're actually building solar cells, and we steal a lot of the pigments that photosynthetic organisms make, and we use those kind of pigments to make dye solar cells that do better, or potentially will do better than silicon solar cells. So PARC does a lot of stuff related to direct electricity, or in this case, biofuels. Because it's, I think is renewable energy is all going to be about diversification.
What kind of people do you recruit for your research?
People like him.
Just
you.
Just the very best. Just the very best. That's right. We have been enormously fortunate of a lot of individuals who are excited about this new area of research, want to come, and there has been demand so high that it's hard to keep up with this. And you see, here is a student who is doing such great work right now, right? So, but there needs to be rigorous training, and even though I said all these things, you can imagine that behind every step there are years of research, not just in one lab, but many labs. But also the other thing is that these different labs are now we have learned how to work together. And so those are the things that are helping us. Yes?
This is still under research.
Right.
How long will it take until the public sees it?
So that's the question that was asked before, but let me answer this again. So how long before the public sees it? And the answer is again the same, which is the research that has been done, a lot of that has been published. So let me go to this one. So this is a company that works on cyanobacteria. That's what's growing there. And they are on a stealth mode right now, but they are projecting that in 2 years, they are going to come out of stealth mode and start putting their products out in the marketplace. So it's that close.
And what product is that?
Well, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't. Yeah. And the areas where I know, I cannot talk about that, right? So, but that's the nature of the business. They want to keep their intellectual property secret until they start making money on that. But this is a great example of, this just happens to be exactly the same organism that we work with. We at least know that. But they are scaling it up. They're using the technologies to produce stuff, and for their shareholders and for the rest of the world, they are very proudly saying that 2017 is when they are planning to bring this to the market. And this is not the only company. There are quite a few. Yeah.
So how long do they live or last? So like if I got a panel like that and I have these little organisms in there and they're doing their thing, am I going to have to continually buy more? Are they going to make more? Are they for something that would make them sick and they would die off? That was a lot of questions, sorry.
No, that's a very good question. I'll throw it back at you, all of you. Is that if you have some algae growing in your backyard, do they live forever?
as a group organism.
Right. But then you kill them, right? You add that copper sulfate solution and then just spray it and all the algae die. So, but there are also viruses. There are other kinds of predators. So in any biological system, one needs to think about, one way to think about is that this will be equivalent to one of those huge stainless steel tanks that those of you who have visited the AB facility where they make beer, right? It's going to be one of those. Now the yeast that's growing inside those reactors, they are not there forever. You have to put inoculum, but they don't die that often. So those are the kinds of things that the practitioners, they need to figure out. But it's not like you have to put stuff every day. That's the good thing about biology, because they self-replicate.
So I think we have one last question.
Okay.
My question somewhat piggybacks off hers. What about the cyanobacteria getting in the wrong hands? Maybe some country that the regulations are not as stringent as the U.S.'s regulations, or maybe a private company that's not doing the right thing. What happens with that?
That's an issue that we grapple with all the time, don't we? I mean, this is the case for any living organism that can be replicated without a lot of problem. The two things to think about: there is no way to keep anything from anybody, because, as I said, cyanobacteria grow everywhere. But the other thing is that the technology that is needed to get all of these things done, that's really at an advanced level. And so one hopes that, if bad things are going to be produced, that will take so much time. It's the same thing as any other area. So I cannot tell you that that can never happen, but the chances are low. That's all I can say.
And just to follow up on that, so these cyanobacteria, they don't compete as well probably with wild cyanobacteria, right? Because you're forcing them to make a bunch of fuel that they don't normally make, and they probably wouldn't make it in the wild, right? Because they'd be out-competed, maybe?
Possible. Yep.
So,
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your questions.